Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about the recent discussion that has been held between the delegation of India and Taliban and why Delhi is keen on engaging Kabul, represented by the Talibani regime, despite not recognizing it as a legitimate government or legitimate representative of Afghan people or Afghanistan. So before moving further in this video, let us try to understand the location of Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan is a country that we can see is situated to the west of India, sharing border with countries such as Pakistan, small border it has with India in the north, and Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and then one of the longest borders, second longest border it has is with Iran. So basically what we have seen recently is a visit of the Foreign Secretary of India, Vikram Misri, where he met with the Taliban-ruled Afghans acting Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi. The meeting has come at the time when the geopolitics of the entire region is seen to be in a state of flux where it is continuously evolving and changing. The regional dynamics between the key players of the South Asia and West Asia is undergoing a significant transformation. Now, this meeting has come at the time when India has not shown any keenness or any move to grant official recognition to the Taliban government. However, this meeting can be considered as an effort India has made diplomatically to ensure that its own national interest as well as the security interest in the region remains secure, and for that the assistance, or we can say collaboration and coordination with Taliban to some extent becomes necessary. So this is not the first time India has engaged Taliban. We know that it was in the month of August 2021, Taliban took over the control of Afghan by toppling its previous regime. And it was during those time itself, the engagement has been observed with the, for example, Deepak Mittal has met the Taliban's Doha office representative. Deepak Mittal was the ambassador of India, led by Sher Mohammad Abbas Stanik Jai, who also actually has read in or studied, we can say, in the one of the military academies of India in the past. And overall, if we talk about the active engagement, it has not been as much active as India had with the Ashraf Ghani government, but nonetheless. So in June 2022, in the following year, then the joint secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, who is joint secretary of the three regions, Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan, he met with the key Taliban leaders, where India and Taliban both agreed that as far as the humanitarian assistance is concerned, India should keep providing and ensuring facilitation of the same. So from low key and limited engagement that we had seen in the early few years, now it seems that India is keen on further expanding its ties, if not at least recognizing for now the Taliban as a legitimate ruler. Now, what are the major factors that might have influenced India's decision to engage Taliban? There are few factors we can identify. The first factor is the Iran factor. Now, we know that after the coming of Taliban in the power, Iran shared similar concern that India had, and that concern was largely about the right of women and minorities in the Afghanistan. And to some extent, their concerns have been proven to be correct, because after the coming of power of Taliban, we have seen a decimation of the women's right. We have seen the closing of many businesses, many hospitals where the women were working, even many, we can say, children's after the age of certain years, they have been allowed to not, they have not been allowed to go and study in the schools or in the colleges and all that. Although recently we know that since October 7, 2023, due to the attack of Hamas on Israel and Israel's retaliatory strike and action on the Hamas as well as Hezbollah has weakened the Iran to some extent. Further, the downfall of Bashar al-Assad is something that is a kind of debacle for the Iran. So now Iran, since it shares a very long border with Afghanistan, do not worry or do not want to be concerned about that particular border area. So it has recently said, the Iran's ambassador to India, in one of the interview, he has said that although the Taliban's treatment of women is horrendous, and that is true obviously, the Taliban regime is a reality. There is no denying the fact that today Taliban is actually in the real control of Afghanistan, and we do not see it changing in the near future. So whatever geopolitical decisions we have to take in with a sense of rationality, with a sense of reality, it has to consider Taliban as a key player and a major government. Now we try to understand what might be the second factor. The second factor is the Russia factor. Now we know that since 2022, Russia has engaged in a violent war that it has unleashed on the Ukraine, and most of its military capability resources is largely being spent and largely being what you can call sent toward the Ukraine front. In this context, the Russia also do not want to have any kind of threat, largely the terrorist threat that might be originating from the Afghanistan border, and it is due to this reason the president of Russia said that Taliban is now an ally in fighting the terrorism. The Moscow basically sees a major security threat from the Islamic groups based in countries from Afghanistan to the Middle East, and the most notorious of them is obviously the ISIS. So in December 2024 itself, the Russian parliament, that is also called as Duma, it has voted in favor of law that would make it possible to remove Taliban from the Moscow's list of banned terrorist organizations. And this might be the first step where Russia can start to directly legitimize the Taliban rule by recognizing them as a legitimate representatives. So this is also something that India is being influenced by. Third is obviously the China, which is a very critical factor, a major factor, because Chinese great game is seen to be unfolding in the Afghan territory. For example, China has started building bridges and most of its concern, and it is eyeing basically the natural resources of Afghanistan, such as iron ore reserves. To understand this, in the September 2023, the China sent for the first time its ambassador in Kabul, and also then later on received the Taliban representative as its ambassador. Now, what does this step mean? It means that China has accepted Taliban as a legitimate ruler of Afghanistan, and that is why diplomatic relationship on the basis of principality or the basis of reciprocity has been established between those countries. So not only that, China has not only strengthened its bilateral relationship, but now it is also lobbying on the side of Taliban to other countries, with other countries, and at the level of United Nations, it has made a concerted effort to ensure that the overseas assets of the Afghan central bank, which has been frozen when the Taliban took over the control, that this freeze should be lifted and Taliban should be given the money that it has a right over because of being the legitimate ruler of Afghanistan. Now, the reason why China is supporting Taliban is also because Afghanistan forms a very important juncture in its Belt and Road Initiative, especially we talk about the land route or land belt. So, in this context, the Chinese approach has not went unheard and unseen. In the recent meeting, the Talibanese representatives have clearly stated that after coming into power, we have asked help from many countries across the world, but the China is the only one that has helped us. So India do not want to miss out here because such a huge amount of resources it has invested in the Afghanistan since 2001 when the Taliban was removed from the power and Northern Alliance government led by Hamid Karzai took charge of the Afghanistan. So many infrastructure projects India has actually invested in the Afghanistan. It has invested in the development of young capitals. It has provided refuge to many of the Afghani refugees. Many students of Afghanistan are studying in India, and not only that, even the Afghan cricket team to some extent has got a large extent of support from the Indian Cricket Board or BCCI to more precise. So that is the other angle, third angle. The fourth angle is the Pakistan's angle. We know that in the initial time, the Pakistan has accepted Talibani government with open arms. And this we can see from one photograph that went viral during those time is when the ISI Lieutenant General is enjoying a tea in the Afghan hotel. And that time it was clearly observed that to some extent Pakistan is very happy because it believes that once Taliban come into power, Afghan will have a pro-Pakistan approach, a pro-Pakistan policy, and it is opposed to the pro-India policy largely that the previous Afghan governments have been following. However, the situations have turned sour for Pakistan. Pakistan is in trouble because recently the Talibani government has alleged that due to the airstrike conducted in Paktika region of Afghanistan, around 51 people, including innocents such as women and children, have died, and Taliban has resolved to have a strong retaliation against Pakistan, and to some extent they also have retaliated by firing missiles or we can say rocket launchers and grenades and all that. So once considered as the best ally, best friend, now the Pakistan-Afghanistan relationship has entered into uncharted territory. So this is also a opportune movement we can say for India to increase and strengthen its presence in the Afghan region, because any this deterioration of Pakistan-Afghanistan relationship is good for India, because the support many terrorist groups that they are receiving from both these countries, to some extent that will decline. Now, in this context, India has also basically have given a statement. If talk about the Ministry of External Affairs of India, it has taken cognizance of the Pakistani airstrike on the Afghan territory, and it said that we unequivocally condemn any attack on the innocent civilian. And it also has said that it is an old practice of Pakistan to blame its neighbors for its own internal failures, indirectly sending a message that there is no fault of Afghanistan in this particular situation. And India supports Afghanistan to some extent as far as the Pakistan policy is concerned. Now, other factor that India has taken into consideration is the return of Trump. As you know, that in the November elections held in the US, Donald Trump has been re-elected as president and is going to take charge in the same month of January itself. So, Trump administration had started talks with Taliban and had come to a deal on US troop withdrawal. Actually, it was during the time of Joe Biden when the US troop withdrew from the Afghanistan, but Joe Biden was not the decision maker. He was simply implementing the deal agreed by his predecessor, that is Trump. So again, when the Trump comes back into the power, it is quite possible that he will try to engage with the Taliban, and how the engagement proceeds, that is also something which will be interesting to see. So overall, what this basically sent message is that many major countries such as Russia, China, and US might be willing to legitimize Taliban, or at least, if not give them a formal legitimacy, at least have a working relationship with those countries, with the Talibani government or Talibani representatives. So that is what India is also, or India might also try to do in the future. Now, what is the India's concern? So first of all, it has clearly stated to the Taliban representatives that the most important concern is, the major concern India has is obviously the spread of terrorism or emanation of terrorism from the Afghan territory, which might spill over in the nearby regions of the India. And the one group that India is keeping an eye on is the Islamic State of Khorasan province. The Islamic State of Khorasan province is basically, you can call as an offshoot of the Islamic State that was largely operating in the Syria and Iraq in the earlier time. And one of its goal, it has stated, is to create a great Khorasan, which has, we can say, the territory from countries such as Iran, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, and Tajikistan, and they want to implement a strict Sharia rule and create a caliph system or caliphate system in this area. So if their power increases, if their strength increases, it might also be having a security implications on India. So by all estimate, after coming over of Taliban, what we have seen is the security situation has improved. Though nonetheless, we can say the women's rights have been crushed much to the Delhi's discomfiture. But as far as the security situation is concerned, it has improved to a large extent. And Taliban also has said that it is continuously fighting and trying to downgrade and degrade the capabilities of terrorist group, including the ISKP. So that is something which is good for India indirectly. Taliban has so far also ensured that security guarantee for Indian interests and facilities, whether it is the embassy buildings, whether it is the consulates, or whether it is the infrastructure project in which India has heavily invested, Taliban will ensure that no harm comes to them. That is something that we can consider to be a what you can call as a good approach. Now, as far as the concern is considered, from the very first meeting, the Indian officials, Taliban have underlined that India's help is more than welcome, especially in terms of humanitarian assistance and the development project. In the 2021 meeting, for example, they have clearly said that the India's estimated project expenditure is standing somewhere about $3 billion in the last 20 years, and it has been extremely productive. So it has been acknowledged by Taliban as well that India has played a constructive role in the reconstruction of Afghan society, which has been largely decimated by the US and its allied war on terror post 2001, and they would like India to stay invested in Afghanistan. So this is how we can overall understand the situation that has unfolded. Now, in the beginning, I told you about the location and geography of Afghanistan. In the UPSC prelims examination a few years back, a question about this has been asked. The question is very, very clear that consider the following 5 countries, which of the above have borders with Afghanistan. The countries in the options are Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. The options are given in front of you. So, if you have read and studied the map that we have shown in our video, and if you have listened to my description of Afghan's geography, you will not have any problem in picking the right option. So make sure that you write what is the correct option for this particular question. However, that is all for this particular video. Thank you very much.